Stack the four Gospels side by side, and the math immediately breaks down. And he refuses to call them miracles. Exhibit B is entered into the record. Jesus has authority over space. Distance does not dilute his power. He does not need to touch the physical body. His word alone alters reality 20 miles away. But a fever in a child is a sudden, terrifying crisis. A sudden crisis is easy to spot. What happens when the brokenness is so old it has become a permanent part of the landscape? Jerusalem, the pool of Bethesda near the sheep gate. Surrounding the water are 5 covered colonnades, and they are packed. John describes a multitude of invalids, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. The air would have been thick with the smell of sickness and the desperate noise of people waiting for a miracle. They believed the water, when stirred, possessed healing properties. It was a holding pen for human misery. When the other gospel writers describe a supernatural event, they typically use the Greek word dynamis. Jesus walks into this crowd and walks up to one specific man. John gives us a single crushing detail. This man has been an invalid for 38 years. Let that number sink in. That is an entire ancient lifespan. Most of his generation is already dead. For nearly 4 decades, his body has been a prison. He has no community to carry him. He has no money to hire help. He is completely, hopelessly stuck. Jesus looks at him and asks a question that almost sounds cruel. Do you want to be healed? The man does not even say yes. He just explains the system. He has no one to put him in the pool. The mechanism he thinks he needs is broken. Jesus bypasses the water completely. He bypasses the man's theology of how healing is supposed to happen. He gives a 3-part command. Get up, take up your bed, and walk. It is where we get the word dynamite. It means power. Instantly, the man is healed. He rolls up his mat and walks. Exhibit C is on the record. Jesus has authority over time. A body atrophied for 38 years is instantly reconstructed without a single day of physical therapy. But that is only the surface of the sign. The real shock of this story is not the healing, it is the timing. John drops the hammer in the very next sentence. Now that day was the Sabbath. This changes everything. According to the Torah, the Sabbath was a day of absolute rest. But over the centuries, religious scholars had built a massive fence of oral tradition around the law to prevent anyone from accidentally breaking it. They defined exactly what constituted work, and one of the explicitly forbidden categories of work was carrying an object from a private domain into a public domain. Carrying a sleeping mat through the streets of Jerusalem on a Saturday was a direct public violation of the established religious code. Jesus knew this. He could have healed the man on a Tuesday. He could have healed him on the Sabbath and told him to leave his mat behind, but he deliberately commanded the man to pick it up and walk. It was a provocation. The religious leaders see the man walking. It describes a raw, explosive display of divine ability, a rupture in the natural order. They do not marvel at his reconstructed legs. They do not ask how a man crippled for a lifetime is suddenly striding through the city. They look at the mat. They interrogate him for breaking the rules. And this is where the Gospel of John pivots. Until this moment, the religious elite have been largely in the background. But now, the hostility locks in. John tells us that because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him, and when Jesus answers them by claiming he is simply doing the work his Father is doing, the anger turns lethal. They decide he must die, not just for breaking the Sabbath, but for making himself equal with God. The courtroom is no longer neutral. The lines are drawn, but Jesus is not finished. If he can deliberately break the religious structures of Jerusalem, what will he do with the physical limitations of the wilderness? The scene shifts from the stone colonnades of Jerusalem to the open wilderness of Galilee. John deliberately avoids that word. In his entire gospel, he never uses it, not once. Passover is approaching, and a crowd is tracking Jesus. They have seen the healings, and the momentum has reached a tipping point. John tells us Jesus goes up on a mountain and sits down with his disciples. Then he looks up. Coming up the hillside is a sea of humanity. 5,000 men, that is the number the text provides. But in first-century counting, that only measures the adult males. Include women and children, and you are looking at 10 to 15,000 people. Think about the physical scale of that. It is the population of a small city, wandering into a desolate area without a supply line. There are no markets, there is no infrastructure, just a staggering, immediate logistical crisis. Instead, he uses the Greek word semeion. Jesus asks Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" Philip calculates the economics. 200 denarii, more than half a year's wages for a working man, would not buy enough for everyone to get a single bite. Andrew finds a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Barley, the cheapest, coarsest grain available, the food of the absolute poor. It is essentially nothing. Jesus tells the disciples to have the people sit down. John includes a brilliant sensory detail here. Now there was much grass in the place. The disciples organize this massive, restless crowd onto the green hillside. Jesus takes the 5 loaves, he gives thanks, and he begins to distribute them, a sign. Just like the water turning to wine, the text does not describe the molecular multiplication. There is no flash of light. The bread just keeps breaking. The fish just keeps dividing. It passes from hand to hand, multiplying in the distribution until 10,000 stomachs are completely full. And when they gather the leftovers, they fill 12 baskets. There is vastly more at the end than there was at the beginning. Exhibit D is on the record. Jesus has authority over quantity. He is not bound by the physical limits of matter. But this sign triggers a disastrous misunderstanding. You have to understand the historical context. Passover is near. The national memory is focused entirely on the Exodus, on Moses leading the tribes out of Egyptian slavery and feeding them with manna in the wilderness. Now, here is a man in the wilderness, multiplying bread. The crowd connects the dots, but they draw the wrong picture. That difference changes everything. They look at the endless bread, and they do not see a spiritual savior. They see a military asset, they see an infinite supply chain. If you can feed an army without a baggage train, you can overthrow Rome. John records their reaction. Perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain by himself. They want a bread king, a political revolutionary, and Jesus absolutely refuses. The next day, when the crowd tracks him down again, he does not give them more bread. He gives them a sermon. He tells them he is the true bread from heaven, and that unless they eat his flesh and drink his blood, they have no life in them. He uses deliberately graphic, offensive language to shatter their political projection. A miracle is an end in itself. It is an event you stand back and marvel at. The counterforce here is not the Pharisees, it is the crowd's own crushing expectations. When they realize he is not going to fund their revolution, the fallout is immediate. The thousands vanish. John tells us that from that moment, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. The sign was given, the crowd misunderstood it, and Jesus is left on the mountain, almost alone. But before that sermon, before the crowd abandons him, something terrifying happens in the dark. Back up just a few hours from the moment the crowd abandons him. It is the evening after the miraculous feeding. The thousands are resting on the grass, plotting to crown him by force the next morning. Jesus withdraws higher into the mountain alone. His disciples, meanwhile, go down to the Sea of Galilee, climb into a boat, and set out for Capernaum. A sign is a marker. It points past itself to a destination. You do not stare at a signpost. You look where it tells you to look. By now, it is completely dark, and the sea turns violent. The Sea of Galilee sits in a deep geographical basin. Cold air from the surrounding mountains frequently funnels down through the ravines, colliding with the warm air off the water, creating sudden, explosive storms. John tells us a strong wind was blowing and the sea became rough. These are experienced fishermen, but they are trapped. John records they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles. Look at the physical reality of that number. The lake at its widest is roughly 8 miles across. 3 or 4 miles means they are dead center. They are at the exact point of maximum vulnerability, completely exposed in the pitch black, fighting a headwind that is tearing the water apart. They are exhausting themselves against an unyielding force of nature. And through the freezing spray, they see something impossible. A figure is walking on the sea, coming near the boat. They do not feel relief. They are terrified. Matthew, Mark, and Luke record dozens of supernatural events. John is not writing a biography. He is building a legal case. A man walking on top of a raging sea violates everything their brains know about physics, gravity, and the natural order. Then Jesus speaks. In your English Bible, his words are usually translated, "It is I. Do not be afraid." But the Greek text says something far more massive. The phrase John records is ego eimi, I am. This is not merely a statement of identification like saying, "Hey, it's me." It is the exact phrase used in the Greek translation of the Old Testament when God reveals his name to Moses at the burning bush. It is the divine name. And in the poetry of the Hebrew prophets, the ability to trample the waves of the sea belongs exclusively to Yahweh. Jesus is not just showing them a magic trick to catch up with the boat. He is standing on top of the lethal, chaotic forces of the abyss, and he is applying the name of God to himself. They take him into the boat, and instantly, the boat is at the land to which they were going. Exhibit E is entered into evidence. Jesus has authority over natural law, gravity, buoyancy, and the violent chaos of the physical world. Submit to his presence. But this sign happened in the dark, witnessed only by a handful of terrified men. As Jesus returns to Jerusalem, he is about to perform a sign so public and so politically explosive, it will rip the religious establishment in half. We are going to trace these 7 signs in their exact order, decode the hidden claim each one makes, and see why the final sign guaranteed his execution. And he is going to use mud to do it. Jesus is walking through Jerusalem when he sees a man who has never seen him, a man blind from birth. Immediately, the disciples do not see a human being in need, they see a theological puzzle. They ask Jesus, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Understand the cultural counterforce in that question. In the ancient world, severe physical disability was widely assumed to be a mathematical equation. Suffering equaled divine punishment. If you were born in the dark, somebody owed a debt. Either the parents committed a hidden crime or the baby somehow sinned in the womb. The disciples are asking Jesus to assign blame. Jesus shatters the equation. It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. Then comes the mechanism. Jesus spits on the dirt. He mixes the earth and saliva to make mud. He smears the mud over the man's useless eyes and tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. John's entire document operates as a trial. Look at the physical, tactile nature of this. Jesus could have healed him with a word, just like he did with the official's son. Instead, he needs dirt. Why? Because John drops the historical context a few verses later. Now, it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Under the rabbinic oral law, making mud was considered kneading. Kneading was one of the 39 categories of work strictly forbidden on the Sabbath. Adding saliva to dirt was explicitly debated and outlawed by religious scholars. Jesus does not just break the Sabbath rules this time. He manufactures the illegal evidence with his own hands and smears it on a man's face. The beggar gropes his way to the pool, washes, and for the first time in his entire life, light floods his optical nerve. Exhibit F is on the record. Jesus has authority over congenital ruin. He can create sight where the physical hardware was broken from the womb. But notice what happens next. The physical healing takes 2 verses. The fallout takes the rest of the chapter. Because John chapter 9 is not a medical report, it is a literal courtroom cross-examination. Words like witness, testimony, judge, and truth dominate his vocabulary. The religious authorities haul the beggar in for questioning. They interrogate his neighbors. They subpoena his terrified parents, who refuse to answer because anyone acknowledging Jesus will be excommunicated from the synagogue. The Pharisees drag the healed man back in and demand he denounce Jesus as a sinner. Watch the 2 trajectories cross in real time. The beggar starts the chapter by simply calling him the man called Jesus. Under pressure, he upgrades it to a prophet. Then he argues Jesus must be from God. By the end of the chapter, he falls on his knees and calls him Lord. With every interrogation, his spiritual sight gets sharper. The Pharisees move in the exact opposite direction. They possess the law. They possess the temple. They claim to see everything perfectly. But when staring at undeniable physical proof of divine power, they throw the healed man out into the street and lock themselves in the dark. The jury is entirely fractured. The middle ground is gone. The tension is stretched as far as it can go. It will only take one more event to snap it. He is putting the identity of Jesus on the stand, and he is calling the reader to the jury box. And that event involves a stone rolled in front of a cave. The final exhibit is not about sickness. It is about the absolute limit of the human condition: death. A message arrives from Bethany, a village just 2 miles east of Jerusalem. It is from 2 sisters, Mary and Martha. Their brother, Lazarus, is severely ill. The message is a desperate plea for Jesus to come, but Jesus deliberately waits. He stays exactly where he is for 2 more days. He waits until the illness finishes its work. He waits until the morning begins. He waits until they carry the body to a cave and roll a heavy stone across the entrance. By the time Jesus finally arrives in Bethany, Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days. These 7 events are not a random highlight reel. That number is not a random historical detail, it is the entire point. In first-century Jewish tradition, there was a widespread belief that the soul hovered near the corpse for 3 days, hoping to return. But on the 4th day, decomposition visibly set in. The face changed. The soul departed permanently. 4 days meant hope was mathematically and theologically 0. It meant absolute, irreversible biological corruption. When Jesus tells them to roll away the stone, Martha recoils. She gives a brutal, sensory objection. "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." She is warning him about the smell of rotting human flesh. Jesus ignores the objection. The stone is pulled back. He does not go inside the tomb to touch the body. He stands outside the cave and shouts into the darkness, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man walks out. They are the curated physical exhibits submitted into evidence, Exhibit A through Exhibit G. He is still bound hand and foot with strips of linen, his face covered with a burial cloth. But his heart is pumping blood and his lungs are pulling in air. Exhibit G is submitted to the jury. Jesus has absolute authority over death itself. But look at the structural trajectory of the gospel. The first sign, the water turned to wine, happened in an obscure village in the dark, witnessed by almost no one. The final sign happens 2 miles from the religious center of the world in broad daylight, in front of a massive crowd of professional mourners and elites from Jerusalem. The secret is entirely gone. The witnesses run back to the Pharisees, and the Sanhedrin, the supreme ruling council, immediately convenes an emergency session. Notice the nature of their counterforce. They do not deny the sign. They do not claim it was an illusion or a trick. And they are carefully calibrated. They look at the undeniable reality of a resurrected man, and they calculate the political cost. Caiaphas, the high priest, voices the terrifying reality of their situation. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. They are not acting like cartoon villains. They are acting like pragmatic leaders trying to hold a fragile, occupied nation together under the crushing weight of the Roman Empire. They know that a man who can raise the dead will inevitably draw a massive insurrectionist following. And they know Rome's response to insurrection is total annihilation. To save the nation from Roman swords, one man has to be removed. From that exact day on, they make plans to kill him. Later, they will even plot to kill Lazarus just to destroy the physical evidence. The signs have done their work. They have forced a verdict. The overwhelming proof of life has guaranteed his execution. But John is not finished counting. Each sign addresses a different layer of human limitation: quality, space, time, quantity, nature, misfortune, and finally, death. The evidence is fully submitted, the physical exhibits are laid out in order: quality at the wedding, space on the road to Capernaum, time at the pool of Bethesda, quantity on the Galilean hillside, nature on the black water of the sea, congenital ruin in the dirt of Jerusalem, and death at a stone cave in Bethany. 7 signs, a complete, meticulously curated map of divine authority over every limitation that breaks the human experience. But remember what a sign is. A sign is not a destination. A signpost only exists to point you somewhere else. With every new exhibit, the tension escalates, and every single one of these 7 moments was pointing to an 8th. Because transforming water into wine meant nothing if he did not pour out his own blood to establish a new covenant. Feeding thousands of people meant nothing if his own body was not broken like bread. Healing the sick and giving sight to the blind meant nothing if the healer himself could be permanently buried. And raising Lazarus from a cave meant absolutely nothing if Jesus did not walk into a Roman tomb and shatter it from the inside out. The resurrection of Jesus is the 8th sign, the one that actually finishes the work. John did not write this gospel to give you a history lesson about ancient miracles. He did not write it to satisfy theological curiosity. He wrote it to force a decision. He actually states his exact motive at the very end of his scroll. He admits he left dozens of miracles out, writing, "Now, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." Exorcisms in the synagogue. The claims become more outrageous. The Gospel of John is a trial, and you are in the jury box. The religious leaders saw the evidence and chose to protect their political power. The crowd saw the evidence and chose their economic expectations. But the text is not asking what they did. The text is asking what you will do. When you look at the physical evidence, when you see a man who commands distance, rewrites biology, and speaks into the absolute silence of a grave, you cannot stay in the middle. You either have to declare him a threat and lock him out of your life, or you have to fall on your knees with the blind beggar in the dirt and call him Lord. There is no neutral ground. The signs demand a verdict. If tracing this structure opened up the Gospel of John for you, the biggest thing you can do is subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who needs it. That is genuinely how people find this content. We depend on you to spread the word. Please keep us in your prayers. God bless you. And the crowd fractures. That is the genius of John's structure. The signs do not automatically produce faith. They produce a verdict. With every chapter, belief deepens on one side of the room while hostility hardens on the other. The middle ground slowly collapses. To understand how this mechanism works, you have to look at the first exhibit. The first sign does not happen in the temple. It does not happen in Jerusalem. It does not happen in front of the religious elite. It happens at a wedding in an obscure village called Cana, and almost nobody even knows it happened. A wedding in the first-century Mediterranean was not a 4-hour afternoon reception. It was a week-long festival. The entire village was invited. Lepers cleansed on the road. And running out of wine was not merely a catering error, it was a devastating social and economic failure, a public humiliation that would cling to a family's reputation for decades. And the wine runs out. Mary tells Jesus about the problem. And what happens next is so quiet, the host of the party never even realizes it occurred. Jesus points to 6 stone water jars sitting nearby. This is where the physical detail completely rewires the meaning of the event. These are not drinking pitchers. John specifically tells us they are there for the Jewish rites of purification. In the ancient legal framework, clay vessels could contract ritual impurity. If a dead insect fell into a clay pot, the pot was permanently defiled. It had to be shattered. But stone could not become impure. So, wealthy families and religious communities kept massive stone jars for the water of purification. You used this water to scrub the dust of the street off your body before approaching God or breaking bread. It was the physical mechanism of the old covenant, the law, the constant repetitive washing away of human failure. Paralyzed men lowered through roofs. Look at the scale of them. John records that they held 20 or 30 gallons each. That is a massive, immovable weight. Combined, we are looking at roughly 120 to 150 gallons of liquid. In modern terms, that is more than 600 bottles. Jesus tells the servants to fill them with water. Then he tells them to draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. He does not touch the jars. He does not shout a prayer. He does not wave his hands. The text does not even record the moment the molecular structure changes. The transformation happens in the dark, somewhere between the filling of the stone and the pouring of the cup. The master of the banquet tastes it. He is shocked. People usually serve the cheap wine after the guests have had too much to drink, but the groom has saved the best for last. But the groom did not do it. Jesus moves through the first-century landscape like a thunderstorm. Look at the theological math of the sign. Jesus takes the exact vessels designed for the old system of ritual purification, a system that could only clean the outside of a person, and fills them to the brim with something entirely new: wine. Throughout the Hebrew prophets, an abundance of wine is the ultimate symbol of the Messianic age. It is the language of joy, of the harvest, of the new covenant. The old system of washing is finished, the era of grace has begun, and the sheer volume of it, 600 bottles, tells you that this grace is not measured out in careful drops. It is an overwhelming, absurd abundance. But notice how the sign functions. The bridegroom does not know where it came from. The master of the feast does not know. The religious leaders are entirely absent. Only the servants know, and the disciples. John closes the scene by writing, "This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him." Exhibit A is submitted to the jury. Jesus has authority over the physical nature of reality. He can transform quality. He can replace the old system with the new. But transforming water into wine in the same room is one thing. The next sign asks a completely different question. What happens when the problem is miles away? But turn to the Gospel of John, and almost all of that disappears. Jesus returns to Cana, the place where the water turned to wine. But the problem this time is not a social embarrassment. It is a dying child. A royal official travels to find him. His son is lying in Capernaum, sick to the point of death. The word John uses for the illness implies a burning fever, a temperature so high the boy's body is consuming itself. But look at the geography. Capernaum sits on the northern edge of the Sea of Galilee, roughly 700 feet below sea level. Cana is up in the hills. The distance between them is roughly 20 miles. That is a grueling uphill climb through the dust of the Galilean terrain. It would take a man walking hard nearly an entire day to cover it. This father has left his dying son to hunt down a rumored prophet. He finds Jesus and begs him to come down to Capernaum to heal the boy. And Jesus responds with a statement that sounds incredibly harsh. He looks at the man, but he speaks to the entire crowd gathering around them. Out of roughly 40 miracles recorded in the New Testament, John selects only 7 before the cross. "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." Stop and look at that rebuke. It is the counterforce Jesus will fight against for the rest of his ministry. The crowds are hunting for a spectacle. They want a lightning strike. They want to see the prophet put his hands on the sick, recite the prayer, and banish the disease in front of an audience. They want the magic show. Jesus is exposing a culture that requires a visual performance to believe. But the Father does not care about theology right now. He cares about his boy. He cuts straight through the rebuke. "Sir, come down before my child dies." Notice what the official assumes. He assumes Jesus has to be in the room. He assumes the healer must share the same physical space as the sickness. Jesus does not go with him. He simply says, "Go, your son will live." Just 7 decades of a life stripped down to 7 isolated moments. That is the entire mechanism, a spoken word. And this is where the sign actually happens. The miracle is the healing of the boy, but the sign is the father turning around and walking 20 miles back to Capernaum with absolutely no physical evidence that anything has changed. He walks away with nothing but a promise. The text says, "The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way." He is still on the road the next day when his servants run out to meet him. The boy is alive. The fever broke. The father asks them one specific question. At what hour did he get better? The servants answer, "Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him." The 7th hour, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the exact moment Jesus spoke the words in Cana.